In the early morning of June 6, 1944, as the first light of dawn broke over the skies of Normandy, Brigadier General Norman Cota landed at Dog White, one of the central sectors of Omaha Beach. Contrary to the optimistic expectations of American and Allied intelligence, the scene before him was one of devastation and chaos, where any notions of an easy landing operation completely vanished. Omaha Beach, originally designed to stop any invading force, had become the embodiment of horrors the Americans had never faced. The coastline stretched far, but it was far from the gentle appearance depicted on maps. Instead, it was lined with barbed wire, mines, stakes, and fortified German defensive positions. Gun emplacements, positioned on high points overlooking the shore, were like vigilant eyes, ready to destroy any boat that approached. Observing this, Cota immediately realized that the plan for an easy operation had already failed against this brutal reality. As the transport planes carrying him and his team of officers touched down at Dog White, they were immediately met with a hail of mortar shells, machine gun fire, and defensive artillery. Explosions thundered, smoke and dust engulfed the scene, and the wreckage of destroyed landing craft drifting ashore created a sight both tragic and horrifying. Initial landing craft had been blocked. Many sunk just offshore, leaving hundreds of soldiers unable to reach the beach. On the beach, the chaos reached its peak. Survivors from the first waves lay scattered, wounded, panicked, or dead. Thousands of American soldiers, who had intended to land with high morale, were now frozen in fear. Waves of bullets, cries of comrades, the smell of gunpowder and blood merged into a scene straight out of hell. Cota understood that the casualty figures he had heard were only the beginning. The reality on the ground was far worse. In the first few minutes, roughly 2,400 American soldiers became casualties. This loss was not just a number. It symbolized the shattering of morale. Units were nearly helpless, with no direct leadership and no retreat route. German forces, positioned on elevated points with perfect visibility, fired with precision on every step of the American advance. This was in stark contrast to pre-operation intelligence, which had assumed the German forces at Omaha were merely reserve units with little combat experience. Cota observed small groups of soldiers struggling to hold their ground and push forward under relentless fire. He realized that the plan had failed and that previously prepared tactics were nearly useless in this environment. Everything, from heavy Tiger and Sherman tanks to naval gunfire support, was limited by difficult terrain, minefields, and precise enemy fire. Even the techniques the Americans had rigorously trained for clearing barbed wire obstacles were almost meaningless against this reality. The challenge was not just technical or tactical. The soldiers' morale was being tested to its limits. Cota witnessed young soldiers, fresh from only weeks of training, paralyzed while their comrades were shot beside them. Some tried to crawl to safety, only to be struck immediately. One by one, soldiers fell before his eyes, creating a sense of helplessness, but also compelling him to act. In that moment, Cota understood that without personal leadership, with a real presence among the troops, Omaha Beach could become a massive graveyard on the very first day. He knew that officers giving orders from afar would not be enough to lift morale and guide small groups forward. The only way to salvage the situation was to step into the heart of the chaos, directly lead and inspire those around him. Cota did not just see chaos, he saw opportunity. Amid the disaster, survivors could still become a decisive force. But to do so, they needed a role model, someone willing to face danger head-on, a lighthouse in the storm. Cota assumed that role, not commanding from a distance, but leading through action. Omaha Beach on the morning of D-Day became a harsh lesson in the reality of modern warfare. No matter how powerful, modern weapons could not replace human spirit and determination. Overwhelming firepower, heavy tanks, naval support, all were constrained by dense defenses and the hardened morale of the German soldiers. In that moment, Cota understood that victory could not rely on technology or perfect plans, but on the ability of humans to adapt, act courageously, and lead at the right time. Every step on the beach cost blood. Yet amid the chaos, Cota began to see the first glimmers of restored morale. A few groups of soldiers under random yet determined leadership began to rise, crawl over obstacles, and attempt to advance toward the high ground. These small but crucial advances signaled that, although Omaha Beach was a hellish landscape, there remained a chance to turn the tide, if someone dared to lead. On June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach was not merely a test of tactics or technology. It was a trial of spirit, leadership, and human nature in warfare. Brigadier General Norman "Dutch" Cota, with keen insight and personal courage, stepped into the storm, observing, analyzing, and preparing for decisive action. Even in the face of horrors most soldiers had never encountered, he saw the possibility of saving the operation, a possibility rooted in leadership, determination, and courageous action. Before stepping onto Omaha Beach on the morning of June 6, 1944, Brigadier General Norman "Dutch" Cota was not a man who happened to find himself on the front lines by chance. He was the product of long-term preparation, from his training days at West Point to combat experience in World War II, where he learned to balance tactics, psychology, and soldier morale. Cota understood that modern warfare was not merely a contest between guns and tanks. It was a test of human spirit and adaptability. In the months leading up to D-Day, he spent hours studying maps, analyzing intelligence reports, and participating in landing operation simulations. Every projected casualty figure, every beach model, every defensive emplacement was carefully studied to prepare for the worst-case scenarios. One area Cota paid particular attention to was soldier psychology. He knew that no matter how meticulous a plan was, if the troops' morale broke in the first few minutes, all strategies would become useless. Therefore, during preparations, he continuously met with company commanders, spoke directly with young soldiers, listened to their fears, and even joked with them to relieve tension. He believed that a commander's close, understanding presence would be decisive when the real battle began. Alongside morale, Cota focused on coordinating supporting forces. Fire from naval ships, shore artillery, and air support had to be precisely timed with the landings. He spent countless meetings with fleet commanders, discussing every detail, when to fire, firing directions, and which areas needed concentrated force. Every piece of information was memorized, like a living map in his mind, so that when confronted with the chaos of the battlefield, he could make rapid decisions without relying on written reports. Cota was also a pioneer in assessing terrain risks. Omaha Beach was not simply a flat shoreline, it was a labyrinth of sand dunes, deep trenches, and German defensive high points. He spent hours examining aerial photographs, calculating every movement of company units, evaluating enemy weaknesses, and identifying feasible paths. These details later became the foundation for leadership decisions made directly on the beach. What was especially noteworthy was that despite all the data and maps, Cota kept one principle in mind. Real-life conditions are always different from simulations. He did not expect the campaign to unfold perfectly according to plan. On the contrary, he mentally prepared for chaos and for decisions that had to be made instantly when everything fell apart. This ability to anticipate uncertainty helped him become a flexible leader on D-Day. Moreover, Cota emphasized leading by action, not just by orders or distant commands. In final training sessions, he often went through simulated landing exercises with the troops, crawling over obstacles and adapting to hypothetical enemy fire. He did not hesitate to join them, proving that a commander willing to face danger personally inspires far more than any slogan or briefing. As D-Day approached, Cota understood that all preparation, from tactics to morale, was merely a foundation. Once on Omaha Beach, everything would be tested to its limit. Hours of training could not guarantee survival, but they could make the difference between soldiers who stood up to advance and those who collapsed in panic. He knew his role was to be a moral anchor, a steadying force amid the chaos, guiding small groups of soldiers step by step through seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Cota also understood the importance of inter-service coordination. From artillery, navy, and air forces to landing and reconnaissance units, all had to operate in sync. He took the time to thoroughly understand the overall plan while preparing for situations where it could fall apart. This always-ready-to-adapt mindset became the key to making precise decisions on a beach engulfed in chaos. A less frequently noted but critical detail was that Cota maintained a strategic vision centered on people. He did not see Omaha merely as a beach to be captured. He saw human lives to save, small groups that could become nuclei to push back the enemy. This vision transformed him from a mere commander into a leadership symbol, where each of his personal actions could have a ripple effect on hundreds of soldiers around him. When the sun rose on D-Day morning, Cota was ready, not only in terms of tactics or data, but in spirit and leadership under chaos. Months of preparation had not only produced a knowledgeable officer, but also a man capable of inspiring strength in others amidst fear and disorder. It was this preparation that allowed him to step onto the beach, face the storm of gunfire, and become a lighthouse guiding survivors through the hell of Omaha. D-Day waits for no one, and Omaha Beach was ready to test everyone. But months of strategic, psychological, and field preparation provided Cota with a solid foundation. When he entered battle, he did not rely solely on luck or courage. He relied on knowledge, experience, and leadership honed to near perfection. These factors would ultimately determine whether the soldiers under his command survived, advanced, or were swallowed by the hellscape of Omaha Beach. On the morning of June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach became the symbol of hell on earth. The sand was soaked with blood, the continuous roar of artillery and machine gun fire filled the air, and German defensive emplacements turned the shoreline into a deadly labyrinth. Amid this chaos, Brigadier General Norman Dutch Cota became a moral anchor for soldiers who were panicked and disoriented. As the landing craft reached the beach, Cota immediately realized that the meticulously prepared plan he and his officers had developed would face a brutal test. Gun emplacements and obstacles were everywhere, causing many units to become trapped the moment they stepped ashore. Soldiers, just minutes earlier eager and confident, now confronted death at every turn. Shouts, bullets, and smoke created an indescribable pandemonium. In this situation, Cota did not command from the rear. He plunged straight into the fire, directly approaching units whose morale was breaking. He shouted, using both voice and strong gestures to rally disoriented troops. "Those who survive, follow me!" His call echoed through the smoke and flames, acting as an anchor in the storm. It was this close presence that inspired soldiers who had nearly lost all hope. Cota understood that time was the greatest enemy. Every second of delay could mean a lost life. He led small groups through obstacles, crawling through deep trenches, leaping over gun emplacements, while directing soldiers around him to return fire. The ability to make rapid decisions amidst a beach shrouded in smoke, fire, and blood was decisive. It was not sophisticated strategy or intelligence reports, but courage and leadership in moments of chaos that saved hundreds of lives. One of the most striking moments came when Cota reached Company 16 of the 116th Infantry. These soldiers were nearly paralyzed by German fire. Cota charged among them, raised his hand, and shouted encouragement, "You are not going to die here! Follow me!" His words were more than an order. They were a pledge and an expression of belief. Inspired by him, the company found the courage to regroup and advance, becoming a nucleus that led other groups forward across the beach. While leading soldiers, Cota also had to coordinate supporting fire. Every artillery piece and naval ship offshore was calculated to create gaps for troops to advance. This was a combination of tactics and intuition, blending pre-planned strategy with the ability to adapt in real time. Thanks to this, Trapped units could escape deadly positions and advance toward German defensive highpoints. Cota was more than a commander. He was a symbol of fighting spirit. When soldiers witnessed him standing in the midst of fire, undeterred by danger, they realized that courage was not distant. It was something to be demonstrated immediately. He became a lighthouse, guiding the way through the sea of chaos, proving that in modern warfare, leadership through action mattered more than any slogan or briefing. Throughout the morning's landings, Cota continuously moved between units, guiding, supporting, and coordinating fire. From paralyzed companies to advancing units, he appeared wherever he was most needed, sometimes taking up a rifle himself to provide assistance. These actions not only saved lives but also bolstered the morale of the entire force, preventing the operation from collapsing at its outset. A lesser-known detail is that Cota also made numerous instantaneous tactical decisions, such as changing the direction of an assault, adjusting routes across mine-laden sands, or employing small squads to assault key gun emplacements. These decisions, combined with his ability to inspire, enabled U.S. units to gradually secure German defensive highpoints, laying the foundation for the operation's ultimate success. By midday, as Omaha Beach began to stabilize, officers and soldiers alike recognized the importance of Cota. He was not only a strategic commander, but also a lead soldier, always on the front lines, sharing the fear and danger with his men. It was this form of leadership that created a ripple effect, transforming small groups into organized units capable of resisting enemy fire and advancing on critical objectives. After the harrowing hours on Omaha Beach as the smoke and fire from the gun emplacements began to clear and American units started to consolidate their positions, Brigadier General Norman "Dutch" Cota emerged as a living symbol of fighting spirit. His decisive actions and steadfast presence not only saved hundreds of American lives but also changed the course of the Normandy campaign. Immediately after the battle, senior officers recognized the importance of Cota's role in maintaining order and driving forces forward on the beach. Intelligence reports, battlefield journals, and soldiers' accounts all emphasized one point. In the midst of chaos, he was the only person capable of transforming fear into organized action. No plan or weapon could achieve this without human leadership standing amidst the fire. In recognition of his outstanding contributions, Cota was quickly nominated and awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, one of the U.S. Army's highest honors, given for extraordinary heroism on the battlefield. The citation highlighted, "Brigadier General Cota inspired soldiers in moments of chaos, led them onto Omaha Beach, and laid the foundation for the success of the entire campaign." Cota's influence extended beyond official recognition, profoundly shaping soldiers' perception of leadership. Survivors of Omaha recounted that seeing Cota lead directly changed how they understood war and command. They realized that in life-or-death moments, leadership is not about rank or issuing orders from afar, but about personal commitment and presence alongside one's comrades. Cota's legacy went beyond the individual. In post-war military training, many American officers were inspired by his conduct on Omaha Beach. They learned to lead by example, foster cohesion among small units, and, most importantly, maintain calm and decisiveness amid chaos. His case became a prime example of leadership under extreme conditions, studied in military academies and leadership programs worldwide. Beyond his military career, Cota left a lasting impression of character and ethics. He did not seek personal glory or use his achievements to promote himself. Instead, he focused on the mission of protecting and guiding people in the most dangerous moments. This made him a model leader not only in the military, but in any organization or environment requiring decisiveness, teamwork, and responsibility for others. Reflecting on Omaha, Cota once said, "Victory is not just about tactics or weapons. It's about people. When you stand with your comrades and lead them by action, anything becomes possible." These words encapsulate his leadership philosophy. Not to observe from a distance, but to step directly into the most dangerous place to make an impact. The consequences of Cota's courage also had strategic significance. Securing Omaha Beach, despite heavy casualties, enabled other American forces to advance further into Normandy, paving the way for the liberation of France. Without Cota's decisive leadership in those critical hours, the entire Allied landing strategy could have faced catastrophic failure on the very first day. Today, Brigadier General Norman Cota is remembered as the Hero of Omaha, a symbol of true leadership in unimaginable circumstances. His story lives on in books, documentaries, and lectures on warfare, serving as proof that even amid chaos and danger, humans can create order, courage, and hope.